I had been away for a few weeks on business, trusting that my new ranch property would remain untouched. What I returned to was shocking. The HOA, in an act of pure arrogance, had decided to improve the property in my absence. Every tree I had planted, nurtured, and protected for years had been cut down, without notice, without permission, and without a shred of respect. I drove up the long driveway, the sight of the barren land hitting me like a punch to the gut. My carefully designed groves, which had taken decades to mature, were gone. The ground was a mess of stumps and sawdust, a stark testament to the HOA's blatant disregard for property rights. It didn't take long for me to understand the scope of their audacity. They believed that since the property was new to me, they could assert control and make improvements for the sake of the community aesthetics. But what they didn't know was that I had anticipated this type of behavior. I immediately called my legal team, ensuring every step I took was well documented. Then I drove around the perimeter, assessing the damage, taking photos, and noting every infraction. The HOA had essentially committed destruction of private property, trespassing, and environmental harm, all under the delusion of authority. Next, I turned my attention to the land itself. I knew the ecosystem of this ranch intimately. The removal of those trees had unintended consequences. Certain slopes were now unstable, the soil vulnerable to erosion, and small streams that relied on shade and cover were exposed. Within days, minor landslides began to occur naturally, reshaping the landscape in ways the HOA could never predict. Soon, the consequences became public. Neighbors noticed the destabilized areas, some of their properties threatened, and they began questioning the HOA's actions. I had already filed emergency injunctions and damage claims, but nature seemed to take over my side of the argument. The landslides, minor but noticeable, became a tangible example of why tampering with private property without consent is dangerous. The HOA attempted to respond, sending letters and legal threats, but their timing couldn't have been worse. Media coverage picked up the story, highlighting their reckless actions. Photos of the barren land juxtaposed with the partially recovered slopes made it clear that the HOA had overstepped dramatically. Within weeks, the damage control was in full swing. The HOA board members faced scrutiny, fines, and pressure from the community. They had underestimated not only my legal prowess but also my understanding of the land and its natural defenses. Every tree they cut, every boundary they crossed, had only strengthened my case and showcased their incompetence. I hired a team to restore what I could, replanting trees and stabilizing slopes, but this time with reinforced measures to prevent future interference. Nature had taught a lesson and I had backed it up legally. By the time the season changed, the ranch was rebounding, the trees growing taller, and the HOA reduced to whispers of embarrassment. That night, as I stood on the ridge overlooking my property, I felt a profound sense of satisfaction. I hadn't just defended my land, I had made a statement. My ranch was my sanctuary, my rules absolute, and anyone who attempted to challenge that would face consequences they couldn't anticipate. Karen and her board may have thought they were untouchable, but the land and I had the final say.